Hi, my name is Elias Dodge, and the podcast I decided to discuss was episode 63. It's titled Other Bodies. This episode discusses the life of a woman named Jane Froman. She was an actress and singer from the 1930s to the 1950s. This episode starts out by describing details about her childhood and how they defined her career. When she was 5, her father mysteriously disappeared when he boarded a train to Memphis. After this incident, Jane had a difficult time speaking clearly. She did, however, discover that she had a talent for singing. She became a popular singer, and people would take time of their days to listen to her on the radio. Because of her speech impediment, they had someone speak for her when it was required. This created a well-loved persona of who Jane Froman was. The podcaster describes Jane as being the first to respond to President Franklin D. Roosevelt's request that entertainers do their part to help with World War II. She did her part singing at different military bases around the country and singing patriotic songs on the radio. She also had the person that spoke for her ask listeners to donate whatever metal they find so that it could be used for weapons manufacturing. When she took a flight to her first overseas performance while working for the United Service Organization, she was severely injured when the plane crashed as it was coming in for a landing. Her ankle had compound fractures and her other leg was cut so badly it was almost severed off. She also sustained broken ribs and multiple fractures in her arm. She went through 37 surgeries and spent months in hospice care. Her leg almost had to be amputated, but she persevered. She practiced singing while in her hospital room and had others help her get her to her performances for the troops. Soldiers took heart while listening to her perform through the pain and were inspired by her story. She was unable to walk quite the same again, but her music was the strength many needed to keep going during a challenging time. I felt drawn to the story from the introduction of the podcast. The way that the podcaster introduced the main character was interesting. He started off by describing Jane's character. He described what he did for a living and how he disappeared. He then put the focus on Jane by describing how her father's disappearance affected her in her life. It made me more curious when he mentioned that it was believed that her father going missing was somehow the cause of her having difficulties with speech. He made it seem like she had a hard time speaking at all, and then made it more clear that she had a speech impediment. It felt like he was thickening the plot and trying to rope listeners in with the way he told the story. It started off very dark and dramatic. It only lets the listeners in on a little bit of the story at a time, until all we want to know is what happens in the rest of the story.